We developed this website with three things in mind: to help you find the best bike setup for your upcoming course or race, to make you prepared for any unexpected weather or problems in that area, and to help optimize your fueling strategy. Let's dive right in. So at this very first screen, we have an area where you can upload a GPX file or choose some preloaded routes. As this is a tutorial, let's just go with a preloaded route. How about the Big Sugar course? Now, first things first, you can see the course and you can see all of these different colors along it that represents different surface types. To get to a key for that, you can just press this button and we have a nice little legend that breaks down paved, gravel, unpaved, so on and so forth. Moving down, if you don't agree with any of these surface types, you can actually paint on a surface type of your choosing. This affects how fast the simulation is going to go through certain parts, and you can even choose certain mountain biking types. Let's try painting some more. That will obviously affect how fast things are going to be if you try taking a time trial bike through a mountain bike course. Below that, we have the different frame choices and tire choices. This will matter in how fast you can take turns, how fast you can make through some of the sketchier terrain, go through some of the mountain biking courses. It will also affect how aerodynamic you are and other things. Beneath that, we have your properties. Pretty self-explanatory. Kind of affects how much gravity is going to affect your aerodynamics, so on and so forth. We have skill level. We have power in watts that you expect to do. This is a really big deal. This is going to drive practically everything when it comes to your actual speed through the course. And we do take a smart approach to this. If you put in 200 watts, it will redistribute those watts depending on if you're going uphill, if you're going into a headwind, going downhill. In these different scenarios, you might do some more watts, you might do less watts. It will redistribute that automatically and preserve that average that you gave it, doing what you as a cyclist would probably be expected to do. And then beneath that, we have a couple of compute options, but let's get back to that in a second. We also have this. This is your CDA, it's your area of drag. It's how big you are in the wind. And this gets updated when you choose and change some of these settings, but you can also manually override it if you'd like. Beneath that, we have dynamic CDA, and this will actually, again, do some redistribution. It will make you a little bit less aero when you're going uphill because you might be breathing a bit deeper, or if you have a massive tailwind, it will make you more aero if you're going into that headwind, if you're descending really fast. So it does a good job changing that up, and it also takes into account things like going through a mountain biking course. You're going to be less aero even if you're on a time trial bike and things like that. However, if you are a time trialist expert and you loaded up the Ironman course or something else like that, you might want to uncheck this because you would be expected to do practically the same CDA throughout the entire course. So just a little note on that. Moving back up, we have just a general compute option, which will compute the physics throughout the entire course, but it won't take into account wind. It's still useful to figure out how fast your different setups might be, but if you want to have a weather forecast included and figure out what that weather is going to be like on race day, that's where compute with weather comes in. So if I click on this, it gives you a start day, start time, and you can go pretty far in the future. I think 7-day forecast is the max, but maybe beyond that. And this does two calculations, essentially two passes. It first does a whole physics simulation to see where you're going to be when, and then it pulls the weather data every 5 miles at that time you're supposed to be there. Then it does the whole simulation again, taking into account that weather data. Give it a shot. Let's zoom out a bit and take a look at the course. And as you can see, we even launched a little avatar that's going at about 15 times the speed that you would be going. And this guy will fly through the course, kind of giving you an idea of where it's speeding up and where it's slowing down. And again, you can change around these settings, and it can even hide and unhide these different little icons here that kind of show you where the wind is, what the direction is. If you are curious about the different wind conditions and forecast and other route details, you can actually zip on down to here. We have route info. In route info, you will find distance, ascent, elevation, average wind, tailwind percentage, or headwind percentage. In this case, looks like we're going to have a 5% tailwind. That's nice. Longest headwind looks to be about 6.5 kilometers. You might expect a headwind at one point. Humidity, average temperature, different percentages, surface types. So that's where the route info is. And then around this area, you can also change the map type. So you don't just have to use the Google Terrain map. You can use its satellite map, road map, hybrid, terrain. So many options to play around with. I personally like the terrain map the most. And then you have lots of advanced settings here. You don't really need to futz with any of these. These just let you edit some of the factors and such that the model uses in order to help determine how fast you might be given different conditions and factors. There are actually many more than these behind the scenes. I'll probably expose those too to the GUI at some point and make it so that it has some better information about them and have a submit option to maybe let you help me figure out how I might want to edit the model. But at the moment, it's quite comprehensive and already does a pretty good job. Now for the fun stuff. We also have nutrition options. So not only are you going to know what that weather condition might be like halfway through the course and how long it might take with a given setup, but we can also figure out how many gels we might want to take, how many bottles of carbohydrate mix we might want to take. So first things first, you have to enter in your age, your FTP. And if you are unfamiliar with FTP, it's about how much power you can do for an hour. A lot of people take a look at how much power they can do for 20 minutes and multiply that by 95-ish%. And in any case, with these calculations, it's essentially where you're clearing your lactic acid as fast as you're producing it. If you go slightly over that, then you get more into VO2 max territory. And so it's just this good indication of fitness that you can use in order to derive intensity. And that's the big deal here, because the more intense your ride is, the more carbs you're going to burn. And that does affect the guidelines that this nutrition setup gives you. And so taking a look at your FTP, taking a look at your power here that you're expected to do as an average through the course, I can get intensity. Beyond that, we also have the age and the gender for your basal metabolic rate throughout the course, because obviously that matters. And you can choose a couple different preferred energy sources. You can do just gels, you can do just drink mix, and you can do gels and drink mix. Personally, I do both most of the time. And you can also choose some common water bottle sizes. In this case, I normally go with really large bottles. I even get 36-ounce ones sometimes. So I'm going to go ahead and compute nutrition. And as you can see in this case, it actually computed number of gels 0, number of bottles 5.44. You might be wondering why. Well, I chose this Scratch Labs super high carb sports drink. It's actually what I use. It's not like a sponsor or anything like that. It's literally what I use. So I kind of made it the first one to make it easy for me. But if you choose something that has this huge amount of grams of carbs per liter, then it's going to pretty much outweigh gels, just depending on how much you have to drink for water loss. But if we go down to something like non-hydration, which has far less carbs per liter, then you can see a recommendation of 20 gels, and it's still going to keep the same number of bottles because that's just based on your water loss. To make things kind of interesting, though, if I go back to this and you can see it 0, and then I down my FTP to something like 230, that makes the ride a lot more intense. So now you can see we burn some more carbs, so we have a higher number of gels. So it's kind of interesting how you can play around with these values and get a good idea of really what should I be bringing and how can I optimize my fueling strategy. And there's a lot behind the scenes here making this work. This takes into account everything from the humidity to the temperature throughout the entire course. It runs a whole other model for the nutrition in order to collect how many calories you're going to burn, what the breakdown of your different macros are going to be, how much sodium loss you're going to have, and other things of that nature. And that pretty much concludes the entirety of this site. It's a simulator. It gives you forecasted weather data, and it can give you this really cool idea of what nutrition you might want to bring. I hope it's useful to you, and that's all I got.